You dare. She was in negotiations for a warehouse in Byhalia, Mississippi, way up on the northern end of Mississippi. About 1,500 people, 1,300 people live in that town. 8,500 people they intended to incarcerate there, 6 times the population of the town. The town doesn't want it. The senator doesn't want it. And his letter basically said to her, don't just stay out of this town. Stay out of the state of Mississippi.
Yeah. Yeah, and he is one of many, many, many Republicans. Everywhere in the country they want to put one of these things. Local Republican and Democratic elected officials are horrified by it. Nobody wants a Trump prison camp in their town. And some of it is NIMBYism, absolutely. Some of it is like, oh, we'll lose the property tax that we usually are used to collecting from that facility. But a lot of it is we don't want to be known as a prison camp town. We don't want to be associated with one of the biggest prison facilities ever built in the United States, which is going to be administered the way, ICE is operating in the streets of this country, and you know how the American people feel about it? I mean, whether or not Trump gets this archipelago of prison camps is going to be decided in very short order this year. And those fights in Mississippi and Utah and Oklahoma and New Hampshire and all over the country are going to determine, in many ways, the moral future of our country. It's really fascinating to watch this stuff. Yeah,
and it determines ICE's capacity in terms of, okay, how many people can they actually drag off the street if they have no place to bring them?
Yes, that's exactly right. And you see with all of these, all of these places where they're defying court orders, they're arresting people and they're locking people up and they're trying to prevent those people from ever getting into court to have their case heard. That's because they want to be able to lock people up without cause and without due process, which creates a supply side demand for prison space. And they want to use that to justify building all these more prisons. And so getting people due process slows down the supply side part of it. But also choking off their ability to build these new facilities will set a limit on how many people they can lock up. And all these fights are just very live, very contingent, and very local right now.
And I just love listening to your guest tonight and the way you highlighted how these people have just decided to do this. Here's this Air Force veteran who's just kind of looked around and started tracking this. He knows how to track it. He's delivering great information.
Yeah. To have Air Force and Army veterans and lawyers and all sorts of people who have like federal procurement experience, people who are real experts in this stuff, just put that expertise to use for a public-facing, citizen-generated database that everybody can use to fight their own fight in their own community and in their own town. It's just it's a really, to me, it's a very inspirational form of public service.
Well, thanks for leading the coverage on this one, Rachel.
Thanks, Lawrence.
Thank you. Well, no matter what he does, it always comes back to the Epstein files. No matter what Donald Trump does, it always comes back to the Epstein files, as it did today when convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell, who Donald Trump once called evil and is now considering pardoning, took the Fifth Amendment to every question in a deposition for the House Oversight Committee. No matter what he does, it always comes back to the Epstein files. He invades Venezuela for a day, but it always comes back to the Epstein files. He childishly threatens Greenland for weeks, and the news media falls for it. And when that goofy game is over, it came back to the Epstein files. He attacks the halftime entertainment at the Super Bowl, once again proving he is the only president small-minded and hateful enough to do that. And today, it comes back to the Epstein files and his old friend, Ghislaine Maxwell, taking the Fifth Amendment on the same day that some members of Congress got to see the unredacted Epstein files, which, big surprise, still have redactions, as Congressman Ro Khanna will report to us in our coverage tonight. Donald Trump watches the Super Bowl and manages to seethe with hatred at people singing and dancing in celebration of the full meaning of the word America, which Donald Trump does not know applies to anything other than the United States of America. Donald Trump has no idea that there's a continent called North America, another continent called South America, and a region called Central America. And every country in all of those lands, from the North Pole to the South Pole, are the Americas. Imagine if Donald Trump had been on the sidelines of the Super Bowl as a coach. He couldn't do what we saw the opposing coaches do after the game. There they are, shaking hands. The loser congratulates the winner. That happens every time in every Super Bowl. It happens in every NFL game all year. The loser does not demand a recount. The loser does not scream about the referees. The loser does not say the game was rigged. But Donald Trump would. That's what he would have done if he was on those sidelines. And what do the losing players do after the game? After some of them almost came to blows at a certain point in the game, when the scoreboard clock ticks down to 0, those players shake hands. They hug. The losers congratulate the winners. The winners tell the losers they played well. The Super Bowl was filled with anti-Trump demonstrators, including both of the teams on the field, because those players showed how to win, and much more importantly, those players showed how to lose. They showed kids how to lose in a way that Donald Trump never could. Handshakes, hugs, congratulations. That was always the American way of losing, until Donald Trump injected his venom into our politics. Donald Trump last week threatens to take over our elections, threatens to nationalize elections, and we will pay attention to those threats, as Senator John Ossoff just said we should. We must defend our election system against those threats. But tonight, once again, it always comes back to the Epstein files. At the end of last week, Donald Trump does a midnight social media post that the Senate's only black Republican called, quote, the most racist thing I've seen out of this White House. And tonight, even after that, it comes back to the Epstein files. On Friday, it seemed like Donald Trump's racist video of President Barack Obama and Michelle Obama, a fake video, stopped the world. Stopped the media world anyway, and it did stop the world for a day or two of consideration of Donald Trump's vicious racism. In the New York Times, Jamel Bouie, who will join us this evening, got it right in the headline of his article saying, this is just who Trump is. If you've been watching Donald Trump's stupidity and racism, which are actually opposite sides of the same coin, for the decades that it has been on public display, then there was nothing surprising in Donald Trump's latest racist attack against the two highest achieving black Americans in our history, whose very existence fills Donald Trump with poisonous jealousy. Donald Trump was in college when this was happening. This was the stuff of the TV nightly news in the 1960s. And when America saw these images, America chose sides. And not everyone chose the same side. I was in elementary school when I saw those images, and I chose sides. My parents chose sides. It was easy for us. We chose the side President Kennedy chose before he was assassinated. We chose the side of the people being attacked, but millions of other people chose the side of the attackers, and millions of those people who chose the side of the attackers stayed on the side of the attackers for the rest of their lives, and many of those people are still with us. Bull Connor, the racist Southern sheriff who was the worst of the worst, was called a racist pig in those days, not just by the Black Panthers. And on Bull Connor's side, a label like racist pig was worn as a badge of honor. On Friday morning, when I saw the false image of the Obamas that Donald Trump posted, the horror just silenced me, like I know it did many others. I had nothing to say. Nothing came to mind. No sentences came to mind. Nothing substantive. I had no substantive response to it, even silently in my head. Just those two words. Those two words that I heard so many times in my youth, just those two words. I heard so many times about Bull Connor, the two words I heard about George Wallace. Racist pig. Those two words say it all for people of a certain age. Robert Reich is one of those people. He is Donald Trump's age. He remembers the people called racist pigs in the 1960s. He served as Bill Clinton's labor secretary, and he chose sides in the 1960s and joined the civil rights movement. While Donald Trump was learning from his father how to operate a racist real estate business and where they did everything they could to block black people from renting apartments in Trump buildings. Robert Reich's thoughtful piece about Donald Trump's racist attack on the Obamas is titled, "Is It Unkind to Describe Our President as a Racist Pig?" Racist pig. Those were the only words that I could even form for hours and hours and hours after seeing what Donald Trump posted on social media. Never forget that there are 273 elected Republican officials in Washington, 273. And less than half a dozen of them had the slightest problem with the Trump racist video about the Obamas before Donald Trump was forced to retreat and took down the video without ever apologizing, of course. That silence from all of those Republicans tells you who they are, tells you which side they're on, tells you which side they have chosen. The most prominent Republican objector was Senator Tim Scott, who said Donald Trump should remove the video, which Donald Trump did a few hours later, and of course never said he did anything wrong and never apologized. Senator Scott said, quote, "It's the most racist thing I've seen out of this White House," which provoked me to ask Senator Scott on social media to tell us about the other racist things he has seen out of this White House. What's the second most racist thing he's seen out of this White House? Senator Scott did not reply. And as big as that story was, as overwhelming as that story was, as horrible as that story was, as explosive and ugly and purely Trumpian as that story was on Friday and into Saturday, once again tonight, it always comes back to the Epstein files. We learned today from reporting by Julie K. Brown in the Miami Herald that in 2006, Donald Trump told the Palm Beach police chief that Donald Trump said this to the Palm Beach police chief about Jeffrey Epstein, quote, "Everyone has known he's been doing this." That quote appears in the Epstein files in an FBI report found by Julie K. Brown that details an interview the FBI conducted with Palm Beach police chief Michael Ryder. Julie K. Brown is the reporter who, in effect, reopened the Jeffrey Epstein case for the national news media. She reports, quote, "In July 2006, just as Jeffrey Epstein's criminal case became public, Trump called then Palm Beach police chief Michael Ryder to tell him that Epstein's activities with teenage girls were well known in both New York and Palm Beach." The FBI report says, quote, "Trump said Maxwell was Epstein's operative. She is evil, and to focus on her." And now Donald Trump says he knew nothing about what Jeffrey Epstein was up to, and now Donald Trump says he's thinking about pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell. Donald Trump's Justice Department has already moved her to the easiest federal corrections facility that exists, presumably, obviously, as a reward for saying she never saw Donald Trump commit a crime, when she was perfectly happy to answer meaningless questions asked of her in an interview by Donald Trump's criminal defense lawyer, who is now Donald Trump's Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. She was willing to answer Donald Trump's lawyer's questions, but she would not answer a single question put to her by the House Oversight Committee today. When asked today if she was involved in the recruitment and grooming or trafficking of young girls, Ghislaine Maxwell could have said no, It's a simple question. She could have said no. But instead, she refused to answer the question because it could incriminate her in crimes. That is what the Fifth Amendment means. It means you are refusing to answer a question because if you do, your answer could be used against you in a criminal prosecution. And Ghislaine Maxwell, the sex trafficker, who we learned today Donald Trump once called evil, knows that she cannot answer any more questions about the crimes that she committed and still get a pardon from Donald Trump. Ghislaine Maxwell was asked if she ever coerced a girl to provide sexual favors to Jeffrey Epstein, and she did not say no. She could have said no. She could have said, no, I never coerced a child to do anything with Jeffrey Epstein. Why wasn't that an easy no for Ghislaine Maxwell? When she was asked if she had ever coerced a child to have sex with her dear friend Jeffrey Epstein, she said that if she answers that question, it could incriminate her in crimes that she has not already been prosecuted for. That is what the Fifth Amendment means. You're not allowed to just take the Fifth Amendment because you don't want to answer a question. The only grounds in which you are allowed to take the Fifth Amendment is that you have reason to believe that if you answer the question, you will be giving evidence against yourself that can be used to prosecute you for crimes that you have not already been prosecuted for. And so Ghislaine Maxwell said today that any answer she might give about anything involving the words Jeffrey Epstein could lead to her being prosecuted for crimes that would be crimes in addition to what she's already been prosecuted for, because you cannot incriminate yourself in a criminal case where you've already been found guilty. There's nothing quite like seeing and hearing Ghislaine Maxwell when finally confronted with real questions. She never took the witness stand in her criminal trial to defend against a single word that the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein said in testimony against her at that trial. The survivors' testimony was believed by the jury, and Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted of sex trafficking. And Ghislaine Maxwell and her lawyers decided that there was absolutely no way she could help her criminal defense in that trial by testifying. And what you are about to see is a demonstration of just how guilty sounding a witness Ghislaine Maxwell would have been in her criminal trial, where she was found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Here is convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell this morning being asked the real questions that Donald Trump's criminal defense lawyer, now his Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, who is a personal friend of Ghislaine Maxwell's criminal defense lawyer, refused to ask Ghislaine Maxwell when he had his chance to question her.
Ms. Maxwell, were you a close friend and confidant of Jeffrey Epstein?
I would like to answer your question, but on the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer this question and any related questions. My habeas petition is pending in the Southern District of New York. I therefore invoke my right to silence under the Fifth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution.
Let the record reflect that Ms. Maxwell has invoked the Fifth Amendment against self-incrimination. Ms. Maxwell, please be very clear. Are you declining to answer the question put to you solely on the ground that you believe the answer will incriminate you?
I invoke my Fifth Amendment right to silence.
Ms. Maxwell, did you at any time play any role in Jeffrey Epstein's activities involving the recruitment, grooming, or trafficking of young women or girls?
I invoke my Fifth Amendment right to silence.
Let the record reflect that Ms. Maxwell has invoked the Fifth Amendment against self-incrimination. Ms. Maxwell, please be very clear. Are you declining to answer the question put to you solely on the ground that you believe the answer will incriminate you?
I invoke my Fifth Amendment right to silence.
Ms. Maxwell, have you ever coerced, directed, or otherwise instructed any young woman or girl to provide sexual favors to Mr. Epstein or any other individual?
I invoke my Fifth Amendment right to silence.
Let the record reflect that Ms. Maxwell has invoked the Fifth Amendment against self-incrimination. Ms. Maxwell, please be very clear. Are you declining to answer the question put to you solely on the ground that you believe the answer will incriminate you?
I invoke my Fifth Amendment right to silence.
Ms. Maxwell, did you and Jeffrey Epstein attempt to surround yourselves with influential individuals to curry favor and shield yourselves from potential scrutiny?
I invoke my Fifth Amendment right to silence.
Let the record reflect that Ms. Maxwell has invoked the Fifth Amendment against self-incrimination. Ms. Maxwell, please be very clear. Are you declining to answer the question put to you solely on the ground that you believe the answer will incriminate you?
I invoke my Fifth Amendment right to silence.
Ms. Maxwell, can you please provide us with all the names of other additional co-conspirators to the crimes perpetuated by you and Jeffrey Epstein?
I invoke my Fifth Amendment right to silence.
Let the record reflect that Ms. Maxwell has invoked the Fifth Amendment against self-incrimination. Ms. Maxwell, please be very clear. Are you declining to answer the question put to you solely on the ground that you believe the answer will incriminate you?
I invoke my Fifth Amendment right to silence.
Ms. Maxwell, is it your intention to answer every question put to you by the committee today with the assertion of your Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination?
I invoke my Fifth Amendment right to silence.
The answer to that is yes also. So just as her lawyer, I'll tell you, yes, that's her intention.
That's Donald Trump's old friend, Ghislaine Maxwell. Many photographs of them partying together. He once told police that she is evil. He is now considering pardoning her. Leading off our discussion tonight is Congressman Robert Garcia of California, the top Democrat on the House Oversight Committee. Congressman Garcia, what did you take away from that deposition today?
Well, let me start just by saying, Lawrence, that Republicans put out that video today. They actually didn't include the questions in the video that the Democrats asked, that our counsel asked as well. And I just want to be very clear that in the question that was asked, we asked a couple questions as well, but we also specifically asked about President Trump. And I think that Republicans chose to conveniently not include that in what they released. But we also specifically asked whether Ghislaine Maxwell, and through her work with Jeffrey Epstein, whether she knew if Donald Trump was aware of the trafficking and abuse of women and girls. And she also would not answer that question, as well as additional questions that were asked by our lawyers on the Democratic side. And so she clearly, it was laid out by her attorneys today during the deposition and later on publicly, what she wants is a pardon from Donald Trump. And the American public should be clear. That's what this is all about. She, of course, her attorney, through her attorney, essentially told us that during the deposition, that only Ghislaine Maxwell knew the truth, only she could tell the full story, but the only way that she'd be able to do so is if she had clemency and a process for her to be able to tell her story. So we know what she wants here. And Donald Trump should commit to the American public immediately that he'll not grant her a pardon.
So let's just go over that again. On the Democratic side, she was asked to basically, she was given a chance in the questioning to completely absolve Donald Trump, and she refused to do that.
That is 100% correct. And I think it's unfortunate that James Comer and Republicans decided to essentially put out not the complete version of the video, because after those questions ended, there's a series of questions that included President Trump that were made by Democratic counsel. And of course, as you know, only James Comer and Republicans control the deposition in which released to the public. And so the Republicans, we've told them they should release the entire set of questions. And so we're hoping they do so. But I want to clarify for the public that Donald Trump was asked about very directly, and she refused to answer the question, and she refused to absolve Donald Trump of anything as it relates to women and girls and trafficking and the abuse of women.
And the the use of the Fifth Amendment does have limitations. I mean, this, for example, this is someone who's already been convicted of sex trafficking. So if you were asking her questions within the scope of that trial, within the scope of what she's already been convicted for, there is no Fifth Amendment protection there. You cannot invoke, self-incrimination for something you've already been found guilty for.
That's right. But she would not clear Donald Trump today in the questioning from the Democratic side as it related to the trafficking of women and girls. And I think it's important for us to make that very clear.
Yeah, so as of today, Ghislaine Maxwell, under oath, asked, is Donald Trump involved in any way in the crimes of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell? And she refused to say no. She did not, in fact, absolve Donald Trump.
That's 100% correct. And her lawyers, and of course, proceeded to make it very clear that the only way that we would get the truth is if Ghislaine Maxwell had a clemency process. We all know what this is about. This is about her wanting a pardon. It's why she got moved to a cushy prison. It's why we have no answers to who moved her, who made the order, why the cover-up, why it's Todd Blanche, Donald Trump's former personal attorney, that's the one moving all this forward. I mean, I think finally people are beginning to understand where this is headed. And the fact that Donald Trump won't come out and just be very clear with the public to say that he will not grant her a pardon. I mean, and the fact that not every single Republican in Congress won't commit to being clear that this monster who herself abused and raped children, the fact that they are unwilling to actually call this out as a pardon, which would be completely unacceptable to the public, I think is disgraceful, completely disgraceful and shameful.
On the same day when we have this report of the Epstein files, Donald Trump telling a police chief in 2006 that Ghislaine Maxwell is evil, this video seems to be corroboration of that idea, that she is evil. The notion that Republicans were somehow, I don't know, helping Donald Trump by releasing just this piece of the video, they must not understand what is actually visible to everyone else on that video.
That's exactly right. And I think Republicans should release the entire video, including the Democratic questioning. I'm not sure why they chose not to do that. And in addition to that, starting with Speaker Johnson, they should make it clear and very clear, not just to the American public, but to their own constituents who are demanding justice, more and more of them every single day. They should make it clear that they will not support clemency or a pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell, because that's what she's want. That's what she's telegraphing to Donald Trump, her to give us the truth. It's been clear from day one. They've tried to hide the files. They said the story was over. They said there was no more to release. And now they're keeping 50% of the files withheld from Congress and the public. That's not transparency. That's a cover-up, and I think everybody knows it.
Well, by hiding the rest of that video, is welcome to join us here. Congressman Robert Garcia, thank you very much.